Okay, hello, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining the School of Politics and Global Studies. We have a very welcomed guest with us. Mike Noble is the Chief of Research for Predictive Insights, the premier nonpartisan public opinion polling, market research, and data analytics firm in the Southwest. Mike is an ASU alum, not from SPGS, from a different school, but we're still proud of him, is Hugh Downs. He graduated from Hugh Downs in 2007. And since graduation, he jumped right into the political world until switching gears to pursue this unbiased survey research that he does, building the company into what it is now. Mike is a thought leader and well-respected pollster in the public opinion and survey research industry. Public opinion and polling is something that's critically important, especially if you study American politics, and we are so happy that you're here with us. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Woodall, for having me, and thank you all for ASU Global Studies and Politics for having me. And what's interesting is that just 17 years ago or so, it's been a bit, I'm old now, but back in 2007, I graduated from Arizona State University. What's so interesting is that I was sitting where you were all just a bit ago, and now here I sit and kind of doing a little bit of public opinion research. But what's interesting about public opinion research is that of knowing kind of where the numbers are moving and why. Because you could go out and survey every single person and get their opinion on an issue or topic, or with a little data science, with a little statistical work and some social science, you can actually go and get a statistically significant and representative sample and do it with a very high confidence level to get an inference on a group of people. So it's kind of interesting. So anyways, I prepared a really special presentation to kind of take this, and one of our core values is making data digestible. And so anyways, we're gonna go through the Arizona's political climate, but we have a couple topics that we're going to touch on. First is the climate in general. Again, are all election years the same, or some maybe more pro-red team or more pro-blue team, or again, maybe a certain specific issue that's driving it. So again, what does today's climate look like? But also we're gonna set the stage for the 2022, or what we like to call the midterm elections here in politics in the state of Arizona races. And then why Arizona has become a battleground state. Right? I mean, not recently, most didn't really care about what we did here in Arizona on a national level. All of a sudden, people care a great deal, and when our state has a very big impact on the nation as a whole. And then lastly is, we go through every 10 years this thing called redistricting, and you'll probably on the surface level put you to sleep. However, like our core value, making it digestible, we're gonna play a little round of elected official musical chairs. You might want to stretch out right now. It's going to get fun, and we'll do that later. A little bit briefly about ourselves, and then all I'm going to talk about some great insights and some things that you all want to know. So Predictive Insights, Dr. Woodall touched on, we are a nonpartisan public opinion polling, market research, and predictive analytics firm. In summary, we're a nerdery. And so we're located right there at Central Avenue there in Phoenix. If you're ever there, we don't get a ton of visitors. So if you're ever there, please come say hi. We would love it. And so what's interesting, besides doing a lot of this stuff, we're also expanded out. We do stuff in Arizona. We got a heavy footprint in Nevada, Utah, and very much in the Southwest region. And we're very big on not only just doing good work, but also being a thought leader and really, again, why this stuff matters and getting these facts out there, especially in a time when rhetoric is so hot and heavy. Last year alone, we were cited over 1,100 times and did over 14 million in earned media value. You can buy it, or I don't know, if you got some great insights, get it for free. So anyways, and then lastly, some of the data will show, and this is part of that thought leadership. We started this, it's called the Arizona Public Opinion Pulse, or AZPOP for short. Well, what was always happening in Arizona, you see a deluge of polling, so you know what kind of the issues are, where things are at, and what happened right around election time. Remember, elections, or the main ones, happen every 2 years. So you get this deluge of polling, but during the next 18 months, what's happening? What's going on? Where are the numbers moving, and why? If you're not measuring, you're not gonna know those answers. So we saw this before. I remember I was putting these things on my credit card at the time when we were starting the company. But again, I just very much believe this was an important need for Arizona, again, to have that data, have that fact. So we're going to share a lot of that data, but it shows you from 3 unique lenses: from Arizona residents, so your general population 18 plus, which is more for your consumers, corporate, overall folks. But then you have your registered voting population, which is about half of our general population. Then you have even that tighter subset, those diehard likely voters. But anyways, let's get into the fun stuff. Arizona's political climate. Presidential job approval. So this is interesting. There's no statistical change just recently with Joe Biden currently as president. And you see, you'll see at the bottom, we have our, how the question is phrased in our methodology notes. Because again, nuances in the wording, but also we will paraphrase up top. But just for FYI, but when it comes to President blank, because it's a tracking question. So again, it will change. But during that time, you notice that Trump wasn't doing too hot. More voters disapproved of what he was doing than approved. However, when it came down to election time in October, notice it got pretty close there. It's almost like, look, how close was the race here in Arizona? I think it was one of the closest in the country. 11,000 votes roughly separated the winner in the state. Again, it very much narrowed up. They weren't very popular. He wasn't, but as we got closer to election time, things started to tighten up and it got close. But when it came in, Joe Biden was in a very good spot. He was in a very positive place, as you see. However, you see that drop that happens between about July, September timeframe. That was Afghanistan, was what started the handling of it. And we had other questions, right, wrong, or indifferent. Joe Biden was in a very good spot, in a very positive place. But to show this a little bit of where that change was, the negative spot that Joe Biden's job approval is at is in a better place. But this is going to be one of 3 indicators. So there's a lot of different data out there, but especially in a midterm election, you're going to want to watch where the presidential job approval numbers are going, because where that is going to have an impact down ticket. Because again, the party in charge, whether they're doing a good job or bad job, is going to have, the voters are going to have an impact down ticket. So let's go to the next slide. So if you look at Biden's approval on issues, it wasn't always this bad. And again, these are the numbers and based on registered voters in the state. And so here we have approval by issue. So this is his overall approval. The blue bar is what his net approval was in May of 2021, last year, or middle of last year. And then we have January 2022 is the yellow bar, so recently. And then you have the red bar is the shift, the change between those 2 points in time. And you notice that overall he's doing pretty good, but he had a 20-point shift downwards since where he started at that point. But on immigration, really didn't change whatsoever. But on COVID, he was plus 32 last year, middle of last year. But voters said -5, so a 37-point shift in the other direction. The economy, -26-point shift. Foreign policy, -9. United the country, went from +4 to -14, but overall -19. But showing where it was on the issues, but it wasn't always that case. But that's where he's at currently. So we have a new year and a new issue. So this is the top issue. So this is your second key indicator or data point when you're looking at the climate, because the way the issue set is made up, depending on what issues are more important, will benefit one political party or the other. Because you see here, it actually tells an interesting story. Like, oh, it's a lot of lines, some numbers. What's going on, Mike? It tells a great story, actually. Early on in the elections, right? So this is leading up to last time's elections, that off year, and then we had 2020, the election year. You notice immigration, 1 out of every 3 Arizonans, immigration was a top issue that time. You heard people talking about build a wall, these migrant caravans. You couldn't get around. Everybody was talking about it in the public affairs space. Why? Because that's what was important to voters. You saw jobs in the economy, this green line, super low. You're like, wait, jobs in the economy, that's important. Again, it's what's the most important issue facing Arizona? What is that pain point? When things are good, when things are abundant, you're not having that. What was happening, the stock market was on a 3-year tear and we had record low unemployment. why have an issue when it's abundant? However, see this drop here and the spike up? Between March and April is when COVID made landfall here in the desert. It was no longer watching the Italian guy, opera singer, singing from the balcony. It was now in our backyard. And you saw immigration, which is a social issue, took very much a back seat in voters' priority list. But jobs and the economy, once you started shutting down businesses, et cetera, you had a lot of uncertainty. So again, jobs and economy started becoming important. So that issue set changed. But when you think about leading to the election, immigration wasn't even a top 3 issue, which was bad for Republicans, great for Democrats. And that's why you heard no one talking about building the wall or any of that stuff, because it wasn't important. And now we see new year, the issue sets have kind of flipped. There was a very positive Democratic environment last time. This time it's switching to be a little bit more Republican favoring based on the issues with jobs and the economy and immigration as the top 2, with education and healthcare jockeying for that 3rd place position. Well, let's show you a little bit more here. So this is those top 4 issues: education, healthcare, jobs and the economy, and immigration. We break them down by party affiliation. Right now, right, wrong, or indifferent, the parties are pretty hyper polarized. Probably one of the worst we've seen historically. And when we look at this, showing that you got your red team, your blue team, and then the purple folks, those are your independents or the people in the middle. So the question is, based on priorities, what are they gonna be talking about? Well, I can tell you, if you're looking at immigration on the right, in these Republican primaries that are going on right now, they're playing themselves out, you are gonna be hearing a ton of people talk about immigration. Because among Republicans, that is important. And also it's important among some of those independents. But right now, all 3 parties agree jobs and the economy is a concerning issue for them. And then you have healthcare and education that benefit more Democrats than Republicans. So again, key to know what that environment looks like. Look at Arizona's US senators. We have 2 of them. Some are in the news more than others. So we have US Senators Mark Kelly, a Democrat, and then Democrat Kyrsten Sinema. And we look at their total favorability, is that they continue to fight to be Arizona's most popular senator. It's kind of a tough gig these days. Mark Kelly is currently plus 1% positive. So this is their favorable and unfavorable opinion when it comes to asking voters of what their impression is. How likable are they or unlikable? Currently, Kyrsten Sinema is a negative -9. What does negative mean? Among those that have an opinion, so among those that have said that have a favorable, unfavorable opinion, is that overall good or bad? People could have a lot of opinions of me. Is it a good opinion or is it a negative opinion? Mark Kelly is about even. Sinema a little bit underwater, but she's been in the news quite a lot these days. But moving along, showing how this is interesting, we're showing that same favorability among Kyrsten Sinema, Mark Kelly, but by party affiliation. Republicans are your top 2. Independents is your middle row. Democrats are your 3rd row. Put the nets to the side, but I think this is fascinating. Democrats right now. Obviously, Sinema's getting a lot of heat because of her position on whether it's the filibuster or Build Back Better or whatever those myriad of issues are. Mark Kelly among Democrats, he's plus 57%. They love him, but he's also been very much a traditional Democrat since he's got into office. Sinema, though, has taken very much a road less traveled, because remember now, there's no bonus points for playing with the other side, but basically you got to stay party loyal. If not, they come after you. So she's kind of gone a different route. Among her own party, she's -7 points. What's that? That's her base. That should be your rock. But then you look at independents, Sinema's -20, Mark Kelly basically split even. But among Republicans, that's fascinating, is that Sinema and Kelly, of course, Republicans not a fan of Kelly. A lot of Republicans seem to like Sinema. And if we show the next slide here, what's funny, so this is just favorability of Kyrsten Sinema on the positive, Republicans, Democrats. technically there's more Republicans than Democrats that have a favorable opinion of the Democratic US Senator Kirsten Sinema. That doesn't blow your mind, I don't know what will. But anyways, kind of interesting. Well, let's set the stage for 2022 and the races we have here in the state. Because last year, let's be honest, it was about the presidential contest, Senate, the state races, kind of snooze. It wasn't really that interesting, not a lot going on. This year, couldn't be more exciting because we have an open governor's seat, statewide offices, redistricting. Oh, it's an exciting time to be in Arizona because it's about Arizona and less about what's going on nationally. But this is that third key point or key data point you want to look at. Midterms are very much about enthusiasm. Who's going to turn out in this election? So this last election, which had the presidential contest, right? The big show, as some call it. If we had 8 out of 10 Arizonans that were registered to vote, went out and voted. About 79% turnout. It's a lot, right? But in this midterm, we're looking at enthusiasm. That is key to watch. Because remember, in this midterm right now, Republicans are fully out of power. They're not in the executive branch. They don't control the upper chamber nor the lower chamber. They have all three. Democrats have all three. And so when it comes to motivation, again, when you have it, maybe a little less motivated, but when you're out of power, you're scratching to get back in. But you see right now, Republicans hold a pretty strong edge on enthusiasm currently going into these midterms. And all this could obviously change with some of the stuff with Roe v. Wade, some of the decisions there. Again, politics is interesting of how things can shift very quickly, but as the current climate is, this is what we're currently seeing. But independent, it's just funny. Republicans are pretty pumped. Democrats, kind of pumped. Weird, the independents, not so excited. But think about it, who's talking independence right now? You basically have red team, blue team. It's like two siblings going at it and you're stuck in the middle. You know, not that enthused, right? So anyways, we'll show turnout why this matters, or we'll after this next one. But basically, the other thing to look for is if you want to know competitiveness or, hey, where's the action at? Where should I focus? Like, what is important? Easy, follow the money. So this is the 2022 political broadcast spend projection. So that's TV, radio, broadcast, digital, your ways of kind of mass paid communication. Of the 5 states, this midterm election, Pennsylvania, Florida, Georgia, California, and Arizona are going to make up 1/3 of all the broadcast spending. And we see we laid them out there and some of the costs there, but Arizona, $525 million just between the congressional races, Senate, and governor. It's not including ballot initiatives and other stuff like that. But again, so we look at competitiveness, so like, what does that mean? This year, your TV sets, your radio, YouTube, whatever, prepare. You're gonna get bombarded with advertisements, right or wrong. So get ready for that. But again, Arizona's competitive. It really matters. Again, follow the money. And then last thing is that turnout. So this is what midterm turnout has been in the last 40 years. To just kind of give you a historical picture of it. And again, this is why turnout is so bad. Remember, last election, presidential, 8 and 10, 79% turnout. It's a lot, right? So turnout in 2014 was only 48%, less than half of all registered voters. What, 5 and 10, right? Compared to 8 and 10. Anyways, but 2018, people were pretty fired up. Remember what was happening. Republicans had the presidency, they had the upper chamber and lower chamber. Democrats were locked up. So very much shoes on the other foot, right? And so that turnout, when you look deeper at it, those folks that came out, they were younger, more female, and more Democratic leaning in general. And so when you saw that come out, it was one of the best years Democrats ever had. But the big question is, in 2022, who's going to show up? Because it's really going to matter in these midterm elections. Again, who's motivated? Who's going to get out the vote when you don't have that, presidential election on there, right? So anyways, so it's interesting to show that turnout will be very key to a lot of these election outcomes. Well, let's get into the state of the races. U.S. Senate race. Who's want to be a U.S. Senator? 6-year terms. I mean, come on, it sounds great. And when you look at this, so this is the state, because you have an incumbent Democrat, Mark Kelly is the current one there for US Senate. So he's not really gonna have a primary or anyone to speak of. So there's a competitive GOP primary. So these Republicans vying for the nomination to take on the incumbent Mark Kelly. And we show here is the current state of the race. So we've been tracking it, polling about every 2 months. We just show the last 2 polls. The red bar is our January poll. November is a little lighter. Uninterestingly, there was no statistical change from November to January. The race didn't really move. So the current state of the race is still the same. Current Attorney General, Arizona Attorney General Mark Brnovich is currently kind of leading the pack at 25% support. Former Arizona National Guard General Mick McGuire, he's at 11%. And then you kind of have these 2 or 3 folks, Jim Lehman, Blake Masters, Justin Olson. But the biggest number actually leading in this contest are all the voters that are unsure or haven't made a decision. They have an informed opinion of who they wanted. So what's interesting, this race is still kind of up for grabs because where that 47% goes, ultimately decide the race. Like 25 is nice, but that ain't gonna get you where you need to go. What's interesting, you probably heard a ton about Governor Doug Ducey of him getting in the race, right? Is he getting in? Governor, he's termed out, right? Governor Ducey's been there 8 years. Now this shows, this is kind of interesting about polling. We can show these different scenarios. We know what it was, so we're like, okay, we tested the primary, didn't change, nothing interesting. However, let's say Doug decides to jump in, but like, why have people been talking about Doug Ducey jumping in the race? Why is Republican leadership then, and he of course says, I'm not running, I'm not running, I'm not running. Why do they keep bringing it up? We polled it and we see why. If he jumped in the race today, he would start at 35%. He would kneecap Mark Brnovich, taking half of his support out right away, and then also take away a little bit from everybody else, and then take off 13 points from those unsures, undecideds. So I get why Minority Leader Mitch McConnell is so hot and heavy on wanting to get Governor Ducey to run for Senate, because he would absolutely change up the race and shake it up. Whether he does or not, I don't know. We'll see. Again, testing it out. But I see now why Minority Leader Mitch McConnell would love to be Majority Leader Mitch McConnell after the 2022 election if Doug did actually just in fact decide to run. Interesting though, right? When we look at the US Senate race right now, you have Mark Kelly and then a generic Republican, because there's like 5 or 6, right? We're gonna test them all individually, but just a generic Republican. How does he perform? It's funny, we do these generic tests of generic Democrat versus generic Republican. Currently, Republicans are leading in all the generic ballots. What's interesting, Mark Kelly against a generic Republican, he's leading. And what that tells me is this, even in this tough environment, Mark Kelly is probably doing the best darn job he can navigating this probably tough political climate. He's actually in a pretty darn good position. He's not over 50% though. The goal is always to be above 50, so he's not secure, but he's not in a terrible spot. But among some key demographic groups, he's plus 18 with Hispanic Latinos, a very big and important demographic voting bloc here in our state. But he's plus 10 with women, and then plus 8 in Maricopa County. Remember, Maricopa County, 6 in 10 of our votes come from the voter-rich Maricopa County region, and also was ultimately going to decide this election. It's kind of the wild part. You got the ones that are voting Republican, voting Democrat. It's 19%. That's ultimately going to decide the race. Or those people, where are they going to go? I don't decide it. But this highlights it even more how important independents are. Because even with Mark Kelly, there's this adage in politics. Like you talk to political consultants, it's like R's vote R's, D's vote D, and you battle for the folks in the middle. There's a lot of truth to that, actually. And you see Republicans, 8 out of 10 there, 8 out of 10 for the Democrat, but then the folks in the middle, Mark Kelly's sitting with 40% support among independents, but only 25% for the generic Republican. And again, these folks here are going to be very instrumental in deciding, you know, whether Mark Kelly gets another term or if it changes over from a blue to a red seat. We'll see. Now let's move on to the governor's race, or what I like to call be the CEO of the state of Arizona. How cool is that? I mean, who doesn't want to be the CEO, let alone CEO of a state? I find that cool. So we look at this. So this one's a little more interesting because the governor is termed out. So we have a Democratic primary and we have a Republican primary going on since there's no incumbent. And you see currently in the race, you've heard that Carrie Lake, former Fox 10 news anchor, who's been leading in the GOP primary. And you have former Congressman Matt Salmon, Kimberly Lee, she state treasurer, she actually dropped out recently. So we'll be sure to remove her on our next poll. Steve Gaynor, self-funder. Karen Taylor Robeson, self-funder. Rory Rios actually just recently dropped out a week or so ago. And then you have about half unsure, undecided. What's interesting though, at the race is that we've pulled this race 3 times in the last 6 months. Lake support has always been roughly around at 28%. The interesting part is even with getting Trump's endorsement, raising over $1 million, and also getting a lot of her media, she's failed to grow her support or her base. She hasn't moved. She hasn't grown. She might have decreased slightly, but the big thing is campaigns are all about momentum and growth. She hasn't grown, but Matt Salmon, former congressman, also was almost governor of Arizona. He was the nominee, Republican nominee against Janet Napolitano. Obviously, he lost. She became governor. But again, so he's a seasoned Politico going, but he's making some ground up right now. And then I think Karen Taylor Robeson, keep an eye on her. She's gone up pretty heavy and hard with broadcast spending, about $250,000 a week. And roughly, when you have that big of undecided or unsure voters, start spending a lot of money on broadcast, people are going to start forming opinions. So this race is going to be is going to get hot before it gets cold, and it's probably going to get nasty. So if you like reality TV stuff, you're going to love this governor's primary because it's going to get nuts. Anyways, and now we look at the Democratic primary. Not as competitive, I think, as the Republican one. Katie Hobbs, the current Secretary of State of Arizona, not only is she in a very strong polling position, and she's been consistently there, but also she has a large cash advantage of money. Why is money important? Not because it's money, no. It's what that money does. You use that money to get your message out to your audiences. If you cannot communicate to your voters, how are they going to know about all the great things that you're going to do for them, right? That's why it's important. So money and polling are key indicators, but she hasn't moved. Marco Lopez and Aaron Lieberman, who are in the race, pretty much been in that same spot in the last 6 months. They failed to grow and expand their base or their folks. And again, there's a little less unsures in there. So right now, I think it's Hobbs' race to lose, but you never know because she had a discrimination issue, right? Recently, you saw some news on it. But this is the interesting thing about polling. Perception does not always meet reality. And this is why you'll hear about maybe some stories, you're like, man, that sounds bad. Wow, they're not gonna make it. But the question is, did it have an impact? Did it resonate? Right, wrong, or indifferent? Again, does it hurt? Because again, if an attack or again, a campaign makes a misstep, an issue, question is, do you need to respond to it? And how do you respond? Do you need to come strong or, hey, it's not really gonna have an impact? So in testing, half of folks didn't even hear about the whole discrimination suit against Katie Hobbs. Again, right, wrong, or different, that's what it was. And so when it comes to like, the question, it was like, hey, will this stifle her momentum? Will this now make the race more competitive? And the reality was that it's basically if a tree falls in a forest and no one hears about it, there you go. And we see the awareness just in general, let alone the impact, it was just very low, which is interesting. And then you see here, sorry, let me get some water real quick. Whew. My Marco Rubio moment. Remember that one? I'll think twice trying to take a drink of water on national television, right? Anyways, so you look at that governor's race. So again, when I was talking about those generic ballots, again, we're seeing when you have a generic Democrat, generic Republican for the governor's race, you see Republicans that have a slight advantage. But the big thing is, it's where those 26% of unsures or undecided is going to go are the important or more important than, of course, the folks that are already picking teams. But what's interesting among the key demographics in the race, Hispanic Latinos, Democrat plus 9. Plus 9, if you're not sure, that means they have a 9-point advantage. So, and so when you're looking at this, is that normally Democrats, they're typically, will get the Hispanic Latino supported around in the 20s or high teens. And that's what's interesting, seeing it only at 9. We're seeing there's been a shift on this Hispanic Latino block. They used to be pretty more to the blue side. They're starting to move a little bit more to the red side. Again, they're still blue. They're just less blue than they were. And then women plus 6 for Dems, but Maricopa County, GOP has a +1 advantage. All right. And now this is the party breakup. Again, that whole adage. R's vote R's, D's vote D, ballot for everyone in the middle. This one sums it up very nicely. Republicans, plus 77 for the GOP. Democrats, plus 76 for the for Democrat. Independents. Remember, I'm gonna use this. Air quotes on independents. This is a big misnomer most have. They're not, it's a false positive. They're actually not all independent. A quarter of them or so are Democrats, actually. They're disaffected. They don't want to be part of the party politics. They maybe still are, but hey, they don't want to deal with the fighting and all the nastiness that's kind of going on in these parties these days. And then you have 29% over here that are actually Republicans. Right? Because again, generically, they say they're independent, they're already picking teams. And they have, we're still ways away from the election. So this 45% here, that's actually your true independent voter, which is interesting. And that's actually the folks that are really going to decide a ton of these contests, because those are the true persuadable voters. Like it or not, again, it's just this hyperpolarization, this party loyalty. And I'm going to show you more in that too when I show how Arizona here became a battleground state. So Arizona, like no one cared, right? We would do our elections, but again, we'd all be watching Florida, Pennsylvania, again, these other battleground states. Guess what? We're a battleground state now. What? Prior to the 2018 election, every statewide office was held by a Republican. So how to show, okay, people say, oh, what has made Arizona a battleground state? You'll see, oh, Hispanic Latino growth, or oh, because of grassroots efforts. You're gonna hear all these things. All those things were factors, right? But the biggest factor, the main driving point, what truly caused Arizona to become this now battleground state was the suburban voter and that shift. And we'll show you, because here's the thing, everybody talks about it. Has anyone actually shown you where it happened? We can do it. I'm gonna show you right now. So this, don't worry about too much what's going on the map right now. On the top right, that's your legend. So this is what we call a precinct loyalty chart or map. And this is done by our friends J. Miles Coleman of Spotto's Crystal Ball, which by the way, most accurate election prognosticators last cycle. They're 55 and 56 of races called. They're almost perfect. And so you look at the precinct loyalty. So you have the 2016 presidential contest compared with the 2018 Senate race. Did they stay party loyal? Arizona has 1,459 voter precincts in the state. And so the reason why we take President and Senate, they are so closely aligned ideologically in how people vote. We've seen there's been plenty of articles written how historically President and Senate, how close they are. So it's a great matchup because the question is, did they stay party loyal? Because remember in 2016, you had Hillary Clinton against Donald Trump. 2018 Senate, you had Kyrsten Sinema, Democrat, and Republican Martha McSally. All right, so the dark blues, and there's 633 of those precincts, voted Hillary for president and stayed party loyal, voted for Sinema. Then you have two precincts, those pink ones, voted Hillary Clinton, Democrat, right? But said, you know what? I like that Republican fighter pilot gal, Martha McSally. I'm gonna vote for her because I like her. And then you had 703 precincts where voted Donald Trump or MAGA in 2016, and then stayed party loyal and voted for Martha McSally, the Republican. And again, remember, there's a little bit more Republicans than Democrats here, right? 633 blue, 703 for them. So again, how the heck did Martha McSally lose in a state that has quite the advantage? So you see that light blue, 118 voting precincts voted MAGA, and 16 said, you know what? Even though Donald Trump has endorsed this person, Martha McSally, Republican, and has come out here and done multiple rallies and events, I'm gonna vote for Democrat Kirsten Sinema. 118. So of 120 precincts, so about 8% of the state really kind of shifted. So we jump next. So the question is it all about hyperpartisanship? Because here's the thing, is there a regional advantage? Think about it. We know our state better than anybody else. We jump to the next slide. Oh, there you go, perfect. So the only two precincts Martha McSally landed up flipping were in her home area. Remember, Martha McSally's congressional district was in southern Arizona, which has our second largest city of Tucson. Tucson, though, is only or Pima County, it's only about 16% of our total vote. Maricopa County, where Congresswoman Sinema's district was from, is 6 in 10 voters come from there, but also they're like the 800-pound gorilla in the Arizona state room, right? And you think that, hey, even though that person's a Republican or maybe I might not agree with them, you know what? I'm going to support them because, you know, Southern Arizona, they know us, they get us, they represent us. It's funny, the only two precincts Martha flipped were down there in her home area. Like, oh, home field advantage. Sinema flipped 10, so that's a net -8. They didn't get a home field advantage. And now where was that big shift that happened? Maricopa County in the suburbs. On this top left here, this legend, 317 precincts say party loyal. And then you see that big 0 there? That's called a goose egg in sports. Martha McSally didn't flip one precinct, not one. Trump McSally, same 313, at 88, all those light blues, all those precincts, all those folks voted heavy and hard for Donald Trump. And then, even though McSally was endorsed, everything else, they voted for Democrat Kirsten Sinema. So their show is very much unequivocally that's why you kept hearing a lot about the suburban voter. They were very much pro-Republican prior, but once Trump was in office and everything else, I think they might have swayed a little bit. And ultimately, they got moved over to the Democrats, but ultimately, that was the shift that happened that caused Kirsten Sinema, the first Democrat in decades, to get elected in Arizona, and also multiple other Democrats winning statewide. So again, it was very much a shift that happened, but again, it was based on geographic density. And I find this is hilarious. So remember, Martha McSally was the nominee the next time in 2020, right? Right in 2018 against Sinema, she lost. And why not run again? But what the funny thing was, she didn't change her strategy one bit. She stayed right where she was on the Trump platform and everything else. And Mark Kelly, and I swear to you, I feel like Kirsten Sinema walked off, handed the playbook to Mark Kelly, and said, hey, you want to be a senator? You just follow this right here. You plant yourself in the middle, say I'm for Arizona, I'm right in the middle, I'm not going to be all this partisan stuff, and there you go. He took it, rode with it. She did the exact same strategy. It played out. It basically crystallized what happened. No shift. But it's like the definition of sanity. Try to do the same thing and expecting a different result, right? Anyways, lots of it. So let's get into the fun stuff. All right, last part, redistricting. So you're looking at this. These are like the redistricting maps, right? You're probably thinking like, wow, that's not very exciting unless you're really into maps. And so you have redistricting, why it's important. It's this thing that happens every 10 years. And the reason why we do redistricting is because you have population growth and you also have population reduction. So people moving in, moving out, you have both those. And so they redo it and they make sure their goal is to not only reshape the lines, so they basically change the rules of the game or the lines of the political game. On the congressional maps to your state legislative district. And again, they'll change it because they have to be representative of obviously the key groups, there's certain criteria, but also they need to be competitive as well, where they can be. So again, you have this kind of like shake up on the board and you're like, oh, it's boring. Well, let's show you why redistricting is so important. So who's ready for that round of elected meeting? You guys stretched, right? No? Okay. All right, who's first, right? All right, don't worry. I'm not gonna make you guys get up. Maybe you folks online, I'll make you get up. But anyways, we're not gonna make you get up. But this is a way, I think, best way to show why redistricting is so darn important. So let's just get into it. So we'll have our first round. Well, before round, let's say the board. Let's set up the board first. So you have currently your statewide offices, and all the stuff that's currently up. You notice Kirsten Sinema, our US Senator with 2 US Senate seats, you notice she's not up there, but she's not up for re-election until 2022. So we have all these folks, you're statewide, everything out here, and we delineate between their party affiliation of red team, blue team, with the colors on the borders. And then we have our circles for the state Senate, so the upper chamber of our local house here, right? It's 14 Democrat, 16 Republican, and we make them with little circles there. US Congress or House triangles, 5 Democrat, 4 Republican, and then you got your state house on the bottom right, which 29 Democrat, 31 Republican. So these are pretty close items, like statewide, kind of a good mixture, Republicans, Democrats, House, it's state House, state Senate. I mean, they're not super majorities by any stretch, they're pretty close, right? All right, this is why redistricting is important. Round 1, who's retiring, resigning, or being termed out? Let's go. All right, round 1, Doug Ducey. Oh my gosh, he's termed out. So as we go through this is gonna be interactive. They're gonna have it be popping up on the top right of who it is, what it's going. But Governor Doug Ducey's been here 8 years. Everyone knows, right, wrong, or indifferent. You know where he stands on issues. Who is that next CEO gonna be? There's someone in this room, maybe, who knows? All right, and then we have US Rep Ann Kirkpatrick retiring. So Congresswoman, you see that got grayed out there? So she doesn't want to play anymore, right? State Rep Sean Bowie of District 18, retiring. You have State Rep Lupe Contreras, District 19, termed out. State Senator Tony Navarrete of District 30, resigned. State Rep Regina Cobb, District 5, retiring. State Rep Frank Pratt, sadly deceased. Whether you agree with his politics or not, he was actually a really, really great citizen legislator. State Rep Brett Roberts, District 11, resigned. State Rep DeGrazia, retiring. State Rep Richard Andrade, District 29, termed out. State Rep Rusty Bowers, District 5, termed. State Rep Andrea D'Alessandro, District 2, retiring. What else we got? That's it. That's just one round. All right, let's keep going. Round 2, federal flip-flop. Leaving to run for a federal office. All right. What happened to our Attorney General? Oh, he's challenging, he's trying to go take on Senator Mark Kelly, so he's running for that nomination, right? So who's gonna be the top law dog in the state of Arizona? We don't know. State Senator Kirsten Engel, District 10, is looked to move to run for the House. So State Senator hopping over here. State Senator Kelly Townsend, District 16, looking to be a congresswoman. State Rep Walter Blackman, looking to be a congressman. State Rep Daniel Hernandez Jr. of District 2, looking to run for U.S. House to be a congressman. All right, now this gets really, really interesting. The statewide shuffle. I feel like I should have a little dance go with that, right? But I don't. So leaving to run for a statewide office. All right, this is a long list, so let's go. Secretary of State Katie Hobbs, she's out of there. She's looking to be the governor, hopped over there. State Senator Michelle Ugenti Rita, looking to be take on Secretary of State office. State Senator David Livingston, treasurer member Yee, by the way, moved up to run for governor and decided maybe I'll stay a treasurer. So she went back down. So those folks thought it was open. They started lining up. She came back, but they've already, gone too far at this point. So it's kind of interesting. All right, and then we have State Senator Mario Quezada running for treasurer. State Rep John Kavanaugh, he's been around for a long time. No, State House, you get termed out there, move over to the other chamber, right? So moving over there. State Rep Stephanie Hamilton, moving from the House or the lower chamber to the upper chamber. State Rep Aaron Lieberman, he thinks he can be governor. State Rep Mitzi Epstein is State Senate, moving over to that chamber. State Rep Michelle Udall, looking to challenge current Superintendent of Public Instruction at the office. State Rep Mark Fincham, looking to make Arizona elections great again. State Rep Jeff Winninger, State Treasurer. State Rep Reginald Boulding, Secretary of State. State Rep Diego Rodriguez, Attorney General. State Rep Shauna Bowling, Secretary of State as well. State Rep Richard Andrade, State Senate. State Rep Cesar Chavez, Arizona Senate. Jake Hoffman, Joanne Osborne, lower chambers, the upper.
Steve Kaiser did some fancy moves. Diego Espinoza, State Senate. State Rep Kevin Payne, State Senate as well. And the State Rep Frank Carroll looking to go to that upper chamber. All right, pause. Who are those folks going to be? Are those people going to survive their races, or is there going to be a new sheriff in town, so to speak? But also, we look here. Remember those tight splits we were seeing, and except for Congress. Congress didn't really move too much. But the upper chamber and lower chamber, remember, those things were pretty close, right? 9 Democrat, 13 Republicans are incumbents. You have 8 open seats. State House, remember, there's only 30 state Senate seats. We have 60 legislative seats. Of those 60 seats, 27 are open at this moment. There will probably be more by that time. But again, open seats, because remember, running against incumbent is tougher to win. And then it's 17 Democrats, 16 Republicans. So again, this is why these midterms and redistricting is so darn important, because think about it. Let's say you wanted to run for office. You want to be elected, so your community, no better time to run during a redistricting year, I'll tell you that right now. Because again, all this churn that happens when they redraw the lines and reshape the game that I refer to as politics, when you reshape that, it creates a lot of opportunity, but it's this vacuum where these folks are kind of looking to move up or reposition, but what it does is it creates an opportunity for a whole new set of leadership or citizen leaders to come in and fill that void. And that's why redistricting, I think, is important. But again, what the state's going to look like after this, the Republicans or Democrats going to control out chambers. Again, who's going to be the CEO? And again, the states could look very differently at the end of November of 2020. So, lastly, methodology. Always or put too much time on it. Basically, I could show numbers, or anyone could show you numbers all day, every day up there. But I'd say from my professional experience is that I would say it's making sure you have a representative sample of your audience. So for example, if you were to look at, hey, I want to know what registered voters are looking like in our state, you got to make sure your sample is reflective of your audience by key demographics of gender, region, age, ethnicity, and most importantly, education level, because we've been seeing a lot of these educational splits. Because what happens is, if let's say you're on a survey and you don't look for that, you're going to have a response bias because people that have college degrees are more likely to take a survey. Because they might have time, they might be really interested in it, whatever the case. But there's just a bit of a response bias compared to those maybe with lesser education. So for example, if my audience or group, my registered voters, I know through census and other various ways to determine what that education level is. Let's say it's supposed to be 26%. Well, let's say I run my survey and I only have 8% high school or less. That's not enough. And even if you weight it, you're making that group 3 times stronger in their opinions. A lot can go wrong with that. So again, it's what I say is that making sure it's the right, you're talking to the right people, but make sure it's the right composition and it is reflective of your audience. You do that, you can look really great, just like we did. I can't speak for everybody else, but we had a perfect record, 5 for 5 on elections called. So again, I just think that even with everything that's going on, survey research is still very live and well, and so very accurate, but there's also some bad apples out there that kind of ruin it for the rest of us. But most importantly, thank you. Because what's interesting about this opportunity is that I think as we do it, it's not just doing the work, whatever, but it's also talking about it. And also, again, what are we giving back to our community? What are we giving back to in this case, my alma mater? But when I look out into this room or so some of the folks online, remember, I was literally in this seat a few decades ago, but here I am, very blessed to be in this position. But again, able to talk about this and really enlighten people's life with data and truth. And what's interesting is that you have some folks that, probably have a future ambassador to Turkey sitting here. Heck, you might be the governor's chief of staff, and I'm gonna have to call just to get a meeting with the governor. I'm gonna have to go through you. And so what's interesting is that don't let the current stage of politics and public affairs, remember, evil triumphs if good people do nothing. And so anyways, I just think the future is bright for our country, and also with what global studies and AZPOP is doing. And again, it takes good people. And again, I think the future looks very bright, and I appreciate all for the opportunity. Come here. Oh, questions? Oh, we're out of time. Just kidding, just kidding.
Okay,
Just kidding.
have you guys taken into account like the differences between homegrown voters and people from out of state, so like the influx of Californians?
Well, yeah, it's a little bit tougher to put a figure on that one. So we know they're going, but there's no tracking mechanism or kind of data source that's currently available to directly pinpoint exactly the folks, the influx that are coming in and where it's at. What we do know, based on census numbers, is that influx we have, yes, we get a bunch of folks from California, but we also get just as many from the Midwest. I'm from Wisconsin, personally. And it's interesting that, so we have that point, and so there's truth to that. However, again, we have a lot of others that come from the Midwest and other states, but it's harder to put a finger specifically on because the data just frankly is not available. So we can make inferences on it. What I can tell you is, and what my belief is, I think actually what has made more of an impact on essentially our growth or some of the changing demographics or ideology in the state is I think also that the job growth. I had a lot of jobs. I brought all this stuff, the Intel Center down south in Chandler Gilbert. But again, what did that bring? I'm pretty sure you have to have a college degree to work at Intel, right? Or for most of the jobs, right? And so looking at that, we know these big splits that change, like the right now on the kind of the battle lines in politics, you're seeing one of the biggest lines right now outside of partisanship is one's education level. You got a college degree or not? So again, I think that actually has a bit more of an impact, but to your point is that no one knows definitively, but there's an impact, but I think it's more probably based on the job component compared to the Californian specific.
Traditionally, the incumbent party does not do well in midterms. Does the polarization of the parties change that at all? Make that more likely or less likely?
I think we're going to see similar to the same, because even with a positive approval, there have been some that have lost some seats. However, we have seen historically, like it or not, is that like Congress, the Democrats have only a handful of seat advantage. It's almost a foregone conclusion. If the election were held today, the way the current environment is, absolutely the change in the lower chamber in Congress or in Washington will absolutely switch over. And that's kind of the interesting thing, is that the polarization, I don't believe, if anything, what it's done, I think, so politics is like a pendulum. You have the three parties, right? You have the three that have the main, executive branch, upper, lower chamber. You have it there, but once they have it, they're just not as motivated. So the other party is, so it gets swung back the other way. And what's happening is that the pendulum is just swinging faster and faster due to the hyperpolarization. And I think that's what we're seeing, because normally an incumbent gets in and they get another chance, unless they really, really screw up, like they usually get a pass to continue. And again, we're seeing that now because of, again, that polarization, they get in and the team takes their foot off the gas and the other one's all fired up. And again, so it's just starting to get a little bit quicker. Right.
We have a question online, and they want to know more about sampling, challenges that you find with response rates, cell phones versus landline. I know that's a huge issue with survey research. So how do you?
Well, all right. So survey research under a lot of change these days. And so, okay, what happens? Like random digit dialing, that was the jam. You're finding a lot less people use it now. Because remember, back then, 10, 20 years ago, everybody had a landline, right? It's what you had. Now is that landlines are very much getting phased out. I mean, name someone under 40 that has a landline. And so difficult, so you can't get, so random digit dialing, and not only that, people answering and taking surveys, participation. Pew Research shows that we're actually at the lowest response rate that we have been in ages. It's like 5% of people taking surveys. So you have it's basically multiple
with sampling, there's been multiple dynamics that are happening. One is the change of going from everyone had a landline, they got phones, everything else. People also, when calling to take a survey, kind of part of their civic duty, they like to engage, etc. But as people have gotten more busy and everything else, they've been less engaging in it. But also these different ways to communicate is that, for example, folks under 35, they don't really enjoy talking to humans nearly as much as the other generation for whatever reason. Not judging, by the way, is that, but they love texting, right? And they'll do a survey via text all day, right? And again, they'll be fine with that, but other folks like, no, like, I'm not gonna text a survey. And it's interesting, so basically there's been this adaptation of different generations and different audiences, again, of what mediums and modes, because for me as a primary researcher, I could collect technically surveys with like Game of Thrones crows or carrier pigeons, right? Send it off there, go back. At the end of the day, I still have the sole responsibility. Am I getting the right people? Am I getting enough randomization? Am I getting enough of them? And is the data accurate and true? So the things still change. So what you're seeing now that other challenges that basically like you're seeing more mixed modes approaches. So like live caller, like, live caller's king. Not so much. You're seeing more of these blended, like they'll use live caller, they'll use like a text message with a link to go click it. To go take your survey online. You have the rise of opt-in online panels. What's an opt-in online panel? It's a group of people that get paid to take a survey. Basically, think of a quantitative form of a focus group. I mean, they get paid $100 for their opinion, come take it, right? Take it, they get paid to take a quantitative survey, basically the same thing. And so you've seen a rise in that as well. What else? There's so many challenges right now. And so, what also we have in the public opinion space is that, at least for now, I think it is still fine. And again, that whole issue about like people have talked about, the shy Trump voter or things like that, or people just refusing to answer. That technically is a real threat, but I'll tell you this, it's not as big as people think it is. Basically, it only has maybe like a point or two impact on the survey of like where Republicans were at last election. It had a slight impact, but overall, not really. And so I think there's some challenges, issues, but I think recently, I think it's like in any industry, I think. You got bad actors that use polling. And one of the things I hate is like political campaigns. Politics in general, everything they touch, they destroy. I'm convinced of. If it's really great, they get a hold of it, you don't like it much anymore. So like they'll disguise a poll and say, hey, take this poll about whatever, right? But it's not actually a real poll from a professional standpoint, right? And they have you click it and then they're like, hey, give me $100 today. And sometimes, I think there's also some issues with how the industry, so basically that's why I do a lot of public speaking. That's why I do a lot of talking about this stuff is that, basically there's some bad actors out there, and it's getting out there is that public opinion research is still very much effective, very accurate. There's some awesome groups and places still out there, but there's just some bad actors out there, some folks that basically give it a bad name, like in any industry. So anyway, sorry, super long. I'm passionate about that one.
I think we have just one last question.
Yes, in 2022 with the elections, which one are you most excited to watch?
All right. That GOP governor's primary next 4 months, just bring out some popcorn because it is gonna get nasty, it is gonna get fiery, and they're gonna clobber the heck out of each other. And someone will be left standing at the end. And I'm kind of curious to see who it is, to be honest. So thanks for that question. But yeah, I would say yes, nothing gets, because when you're battling to be the CEO of the state, because again, these things don't happen. Ducey was there 8 years, right? In Arizona, with how key it is, everything else. Again, there's two things in life, in my opinion. There are, for a lot of the folks that like battle for, there's money and power, right? And that's kind of with politics. And for that, so you get a lot of people that are just motivated. There's a lot of national interest, and just they are gonna just really just duke it out in that primary. And so, anyways, I think it'll be exciting to watch because again, I want to who survives, right? It's kind of my take from it. So I think that'll be fun to watch. In my opinion. Anything else?
No, and if there's any other unanswered questions in the Q&A, we're happy to follow up via email
If you want to reach out to us on our website at ohpredictive.com, submit your question right there. That'll come directly to us and we're more than happy to discuss via email.
Thank you so much, Mike. We really
Thanks, Mike.
appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Um,